Hi everyone. So I'm going to show you how to do a few different shaders. I've put them all together into one tutorial. You're welcome to just look at the timeline at the bottom and skip to the one that you want to do. So we start with the basic shading. Then we're going to do a Toon Shader, a bit of a modified Toon Shader, and also just painting directly onto your apple, or onto your 3D model. All right, so let's get started. Hi everyone. So this is part two of our apple. In the last one, if you want to check that out, we did just a simple model of an apple. We used the lattice to kind of make it seem more natural as well. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you three different ways to add color to this apple. So the first one is going to be just the average low poly basic colors. All right. The second one will be with a Toon Shader. So that's just, messing around a little bit with some um, material nodes. And the third one is going to be how to paint onto the apple. Okay. All right, so let's get started. Here we have our apple. And it's exactly as I left it in the last tutorial. But what we're going to do is go to the modifier tab, and we're going to apply the modifier. So let's apply the lattice first. All right, there you go. Applied, subdivision, apply that as well. And now we can delete the modifier because the apple already has the shape, all right, or the form. So let's delete that. All right, good. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this apple and we see that we have the base of the apple and we have the stem as well, right? Something weird going on with the stem. I think we can actually add just one more edge loop here. Maybe scale that out slightly. Does that look better? Seems to. Okay, this is probably because of the modifier. Um, let's just, we're going to select all of these vertices and I think we're just going to dissolve them because they're creating a kind of strange shape over here. Okay, and we don't really want that. So we're gonna go right click and dissolve vertices. There we go. That's much better. And you see now it doesn't look so weird anymore. We've already got another row of vertices over here, so another edge, which is great. And I don't think we need anything more. I kind of like that it's not 100% round, if that makes sense. Okay, so we want to go up here to the shading tab. Okay, and you can see at the top right over here, we've got there's render view. Okay, so this is the end product, right? So when we add all the lighting and shading and etc., right, from the environment. Right now, there are no lights, just the environment, right? So like an ambient gray, that's why it looks like that. But later on, I'll show you how to add lighting and 3-point lighting actually. So it's a little bit more like photography. Okay, I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so for basic shading, we're just going to go to new, right? We're going to call this apple red material. Okay, very simple. Over here, we go to the material properties again. Here you see that says apple red. Let's change it to an apple red, right? Something like that. What I like to do for the very low poly modeling is just kind of reduce the roughness, right? Increase the roughness all the way up. It's very helpful because it doesn't reflect so much light. You could take it down a little bit just because it's an apple, but honestly, like in a game or if you're modeling, then sometimes it's better to just have the roughness all the way up. You could add a bit of a sheen if you wanted to. I kind of like doing that because it's not so invasive. Okay, but now you can see that the entire apple is red, except for this piece underneath here because it's a separate object, right? But we don't want the whole apple to be red, so let's just select the faces that we want to be red. So it will be all of these, but we want the stem, I think. Okay, so we're gonna press Alt left click, Alt left click, and remember to hold down Shift so that we select everything. All right, uh, keep holding down Alt Shift, click click. All right, and what we're missing at the top. Let's select this part at the top. Okay, we're going to go Shift and select. All right, it looks like we have the entire stem selected. All right, so this is the fun part where you can kind of add different colors. We're going to go click on this little plus sign and add a material slot, right? New material. We're going to call it stem, and we're going to change the color to brown. I guess it will be somewhere between there. If we just lower that, it'll become brown. Then we're going to assign the color. All right, there we go, easy. All right, and we can go with, I think, also quite a bit of roughness on this one. Let's bring it all the way up. Actually, especially on this one because we don't want it to shine at all. It's the stem. Okay, and there we go. You have an apple, a very basic apple with shading. Okay, let's go back into our layout mode. Here you can switch to viewport shading where you can see how your apple looks. Okay, so let's just add some lighting, I think. But first things first, we're going to go Shift A and we're going to add a plane, press scale, scale it out. All right, there we go. Maybe we can bring it up a little bit, just over there. Okay. Well, there we go. So we just need the plane, if there's any shadows cast or anything like that. Okay, the camera, if we press 0, we go to the camera. It's in its usual basic, when you open up a new Blender file, it's always in the same perspective, right? So you can either create a whole new camera or completely change the locations and rotations here, but I like to press Shift and I'm actually not sure, it's like a little squiggly on the far left next to the 1 on your keyboard. And we're just gonna change the view slightly so that we just have the apple, right? Okay. Now we're gonna add 3-point lighting. Okay. So add light. I've got 3-point lights enabled here. So another way you can enable it, if you don't have it enabled already, you go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and then over here you type in 3-point light. Lighting, sorry. I thought it was 3-point lighting, but it's tri-lighting, right? So you can see it here. There's other lighting options, but we'll get to that another stage, right? You need to click it to make sure that it's activated. Then over here, I have autosave, but you can just save preferences. Okay, then you can find it again over here, add light, and we want 3-point lights. Okay, so now we have our 3-point lights. You can see them here. We've got try lamp back, fill, key light. I don't know that much about photography, I'll have to be honest, but I do like to play around with the lights. So first let's go into render mode to see how this looks. And you can see they were kind of dim, right? Maybe we can even add a bit of a background here. So let's select our plane, press tab, and then press 2 so that we select edges. Select these two and let's just extrude them on the Z axis all the way up. Right, there we go. Just so that, I don't know, the apple's in a box for now. Okay, and let's add a new material for the plane as well and just call it background. And we can make the background blue, I guess. Kind of like a sky blue color would be around here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's play around with the lights a little bit. They're white lights, that's okay. You see, if we just adjust the power, you can see how the lights get brighter. The fill as well, we can adjust the power. Fill lights. Key lights is the one that should be all the way up. There we go. Maybe let's say 50 for this one, 30 for this one, and 30 for this one. There we go. All right, and that's it. We have the apple. Another thing that you can do just to kind of help with the render when you do it is enable this screen space reflections. So you can enable refraction as well, but it's not always necessary. Bloom, I like adding in whenever we change the materials to something that has more emission, right? And then the ambient occlusion is also quite nice because you can see the shadows a little bit more. In this case, I don't really want them because I don't want to see the shadows of the square, right? All right, and that's it. So that is how you model, well, you color in your apple with just very basic block out colors. Okay. Okay, so now we have the normal apple. And the only thing we're going to do now is do the Toon Shader. I think it's called Toon Shader because of it looking like a cartoon, right? You can make the shader look a little bit more realistic, and I'll show you how to do that. But for now, maybe just an explanation. So instead of using gradient colors, we're going to use block colors, and these block colors they will change according to where the light source is coming from or at what angle this apple is or whatever the object is in comparison to the light source. So we have to kind of calculate and normalize a vector. So to normalize it, we just put it between 0 and 1. Maybe I can draw it. All right, so this is our vector. Here's the sun. Okay, so we put it between 0 and 1. Or actually -1 and 1, not 0. Sorry. To normalize it. The 0 comes in as well because it depends on how the light is hitting, right? So it's going to be 1. If it's directly hitting the apple, then we're going to have a vector of 1. If it's at 90 degrees of the apple, then it will be 0. And then finally, in the opposite direction, it's going to be -1. Okay, we don't need to go into the programming side of things. And also, I'm not a programmer, but this is just what I understand of it and why we always use 3 colors in our Toon Shader, right? So that it can be calculated and the shadow color will change according to where the light source is coming from. Anyway, so let's get to it. Let's go to shading. It's exactly the same as it was before. Let's change to the app. Oh, whoops. Let's click on the apple. Sorry about that. And you see we have the normal principled BDSF shader and material output over here. Okay, so I think the first thing that we're going to do is just add in a noise texture first. I like the noise check texture just because so basically it looks like clouds, you know, that's what the texture looks like. But just so that the three colors don't all spill into each other, and also that there's some kind of it's dynamic. The surface is more dynamic, right? So the noise texture, I think we'll leave it at 5 on scale. Let's put the detail up a little bit. Roughness can stay where it is. Okay, so we have all of those, and we're going to add in another node, which is called the map range node. This node you're going to use a lot, so much, and we're going to plug in the factor to the value. We have a minimum from minimum 0. We're going to change it to 0.4 because we have 5 and 4 on the detail. And add in for the max 1.25, right? And that can stay the same, 0 and 1, right? And we're going to plug this into the roughness, my favorite node for low poly roughness. Okay, and there we go. All right, you can see it's become a little bit more shiny, which is fine because you'll see a little bit later on that that's going to help us get the 3 different colors in different places. All right, so then we're gonna move on to the shader, to RGB, right? So we're just converting everything to red, green, and blue. And then we're gonna add in the color ramp because we need colors, not just one color, we need a few colors. All right, color ramp, and then you press this little plus sign to get another color. Okay, right now it's on linear, but for the traditional Toon Shader, it should be on constant. Okay, and let's give it some colors. So maybe this one can be red, and this one can be like a yellow color, yellowish color, and the final one can also kind of be a yellowy color, something like that. Okay. Let's just move these all over to the other side. Okay. The next thing that we need is hue saturation. Hue saturation value. Okay, this I just want to take down, maybe not that much, just like 0.48. Yeah, something like that. You'll see why in a little moment. The saturation value factor is going to stay the same. Okay, so all of that is good. And I think the only thing that's missing is nothing, as far as I know. Oh, I know what I'm missing. RGB curves. I thought I was missing something. Okay, here we go. RGB curves, you can change this down or up. I prefer to take it a little bit further down so it's a little bit darker. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to add in a mix shader because we're going to add something else to this. Here we go, our mix shader. Let's go back over here. Let's add in another noise texture. And we're also going to add in a bump node. And we're going to connect the factor to the height. All right. The bump, I think we're going to take it all the way down to like 200. There we go. And the distance can stay the same. Okay. Then we're going to add a glossy BPSF because, you know, the apple does have a little bit of a shine to it and we want to add in that shine. All right, so let's connect those two normals together. Shade it to RGB again. We need to have those RGB colors. And we're going to add in I don't know about this roughness. First, I just wanted to change this to kind of like a pale pink color, the roughness. Let's just take it down by half, somewhere around here. Okay, just so it's not too glossy. Then we have the shader RGB, so then let's add in the color ramp. That's our next one. Okay, color ramp. Let's plug it into the factor. This one is also going to be constant, and we're just going to use black and white. Okay, let's bring that. I think it will probably be somewhere over there. Then we're going to add another map range. Okay, and it's going to be value from 0 to 1 and 0 to 0.53. That works pretty well. Okay, then we're going to plug this into the value. Let's move these over a little bit. The map range, we're going to plug into the factor. All right. Then the color ramp over here, we're also going to plug into the shader. There we go. Okay, so something here we need to just play around with. Okay, like here you can see all the colors, right, as it would work out if we weren't using the render view. But we need to kind of work out as well when we use the render view. So maybe we can just swap some things around, see how much it grows or doesn't grow within here. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so that red color I want all the way at the bottom, I think. And this one just over there. And then finally, that would be the final light source at the top, right? A little bit of a lighter color. It gets a little bit iffy sometimes. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's like a basic Toon Shader, alright? So I did connect a little camera. Let's see what camera view looks like. There we go. And do you see that depending on where the light source is and also how bright the light is, those three colors are going to change, right? You could also, make this maybe more of a reddish color. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Okay, so that's your basic Toon Shader. What I like to do though, so I just changed this one to linear, right? You see, it just kind of looks a little bit nicer. I don't know. I prefer it, right? These you can play with a little bit more. Yeah. I mean, they all need to be so close together. Also because it's just, you'll see, depending on how you change the light sources, it also change. Okay, so this one, you can change it to like, kind of like that, right? And now you see, well, we have these three light sources, they're all coming in the front here, right? And then obviously whatever's at the back, where there is no light source, is the darker color. I prefer this. I don't know, but it's also because I do a lot of visuals and I like things to be quite bright. And that's it. There you have your Toon Shader. Alright, you can do exactly the same thing with your background if you want. But what I sometimes do is if I've already done the shading, I just Control C, I Control V. Alright, we can delete the other principled BDSF, we can change the material output over here. There we go. And all we need to do is change the colors, right? So for example, we could have green and we could have blue. Oh, that's more like a purple color. Blue. Blue and green and works exactly the same way. This one you could make constant if you wanted, you see, and you can just get that lovely shadow. And wherever the light's shining is this very bright green. So let's change it to like a yellowy color. There we go. Okay. Also, if you ever want to just see what your render looks like without all of these highlighted zones, you can disable this and that one over here. And yeah, I just realized I don't have screencast enabled. Very sorry about that. Good thing we were doing nodes, so not many shortcuts. If you do have any questions about the shortcuts, just ask me. Okay, also we can change the apple again. Instead of linear, we can make it constant. There we go. And you have the same thing happening, right? Pretty cool. If you want to do some kind of 80s video, I don't know, I just associated with the 80s video. All right. So the next one we're going to move on to is painting the apple. Okay, so we saw the finished result for the Toon Shader. Basically, this is what we're looking at, the apple, right? And I explained how the colors will change according to where the light source is, right? Or how far away the object or one side of the object is from the light source. So now we are not going to use all of this. So I'm just going to move it down for now. And let's just connect our principal shader right into the material output. There we go. I just realized that I'm on the background. Let's go to the apple. I'm going to do the same thing on the apple. Alright, so let's just move all of this out of the way and connect this straight into that shader over there. Well, the material output, yeah, background still stays the same. The apple, okay. I want to get rid of these two. Alright, they're not necessary. And we're going to add in an image texture. Alright, let's connect the image texture to the base color. And yeah, around apple red. Okay, and let's make a new one. We're going to call this apple red again. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at a low texture rate. Okay, if you're starting out learning Blender and you don't have such a high-end computer, just stick to really low resolution images and you'll be fine. All right. Also, I suggest going with low poly models in the beginning anyway. The same way as when you're drawing, learning to draw, and you learn to draw in, with circles and squares and primitive objects, it works the same way. If you know how all of those shapes fit into an object, then better for you because you can use the primitive objects and then build on them. Anyway, back to the texturing. So it calls this apple red. All right, if we go to the texture paint option over here, let's just get rid of the plane for now. Okay, you can see here I'm painting on it. Something is happening in this texture, but nothing is happening on the apple. So what we need to do is go to our UV editing, right? Select the object, press tab. Here you can see that everything, like the stem is connected, but we don't want the stem to be selected, not connected. So let's press Ctrl I and we will invert the selection. All right, we can still see there's a few things selected here. We're on edge mode, so just press Shift, Alt, click, And you should get rid of the first one, Shift Alt click, and the second one. Okay. So now we have this part of the apple selected, which is great. That's exactly what we need. We're going to press U. Oops. Okay, sorry about that. Now I've got them enabled. I just had to click on it a few times and it appeared. Tap them. Let's go to Smart UV Project. I like to put an island margin of 0.1 and press OK. So over here you can see we have all the faces unwrapped, right? The island margin is the distance between the pieces that have been unwrapped of the model, right? So basically we've just taken the 3D surface and laid it flat. The same way as, like, you know, if you're doing product design and you want to design Coca-Cola logo, it's going to be on a, if you rip that off the can and you flatten it out, that's how your design, well, that's what your design should look like. Anyway, so we have all of this unwrapped. Perfect, good. Now let's go to texture paint again and let's paint. Still nothing. No, not nothing. On the other side, you can see it's painting the opposite side of our apple, which is not another thing that we want. So let's go back to layout, press tab, and then go into mesh, normals, recalculate outside. You can also press shift. Okay, let's go back to our texture paint, paint on it again. Now you can see that we're painting on the right side of the apple. Okay, so in the texture paint interface, we have drawing, which is the painting. You can soften edges, smear as well. Also clone and fill. We can fill the entire mesh and it can become one color. In this case, it's white. And also you can create masks. But for this apple, we don't need a mask. It's quite, you know, straightforward also because we have two different textures attached, right? If you want this to all be one texture, which is great for exporting to games, then that's also great. Although, like for mobile games and things, honestly, we use very low quality textures, I guess, especially for mobile games. And a lot of the times we just put all the colors onto the same sheet. You can do that as well. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the apple painting. So let's go for an reference, all right? So we're going to go back to layout and we're going to add, well, let's first shift right click and screencast keys, come on. There we go, shift right click. Okay, and we're going to add an image, but a reference image. Okay, so I just got this reference image. I will link it anyway because this is obviously somebody's art. So even though it's just a reference image, you know, it would be nice to know who painted this. And yeah, give them some credit, I guess. Okay, so this is what we want, right? And we can see there's also 3 apples. So I'm just going to put that there and let's modify this apple first, okay? Because this is our camera, especially for TikTok, all right? That's just the size of the camera. So let's rotate on the y-axis first, over here, all right? And then we're going to rotate again, maybe on the x-axis over here, and maybe even, oops, rotate x-axis, x-axis, z-axis across. Oh, there we go. All right, rotate again on x-axis over here, I would say. Okay, rotate y, coming down, something like that, and rotate. Okay, I'm going to speed this up. I think you get the idea. We just need to have the 3 apples. Okay, so that's how apples are going to look. Mm. And let's go back to our texture paint. All right, so going back into our camera view. If you want this to look like a painting, you should stay in your camera view because that's your render view. So that's what people are going to see, right? Okay, so let's get started with this one. First things first, I'm going to show you. First, this needs to change into texture paint mode, which I'm not really sure why it isn't. Ah, yes, let's select an apple first. Okay, and then change to texture paint. There we go. Okay, so this is our first apple. Okay, so this is the brush that we're basically going to use. And what you can do is you can pick the colors. For example, this color over here. Okay, to adjust the size of the brush, just press F and then move your mouse inwards, up or down. Okay, and we're going to paint onto the apple. Okay, what you can see is that it's going to paint into this apple as well, right? And why is that? It's because we're using exactly the same texture, right? So I'm just gonna show you how to paint the first apple, and then I'll fast forward through the rest, right? Don't worry that it's painting on the other side as well. Um, Once I'm finished with this apple, I'll show you how to add in a new texture for the other apple. Okay. So the other thing you can do is adjust the strength, right? Depending on how strong you want this to be. What I do like to do is just get like the in-between color of the apple, so maybe this kind of red color. And usually you have to brighten it a little bit. Okay, let's go here, and there we go. We're going to paint. Let's fill the entire apple in with this color here. Okay, there we go. Whole apple filled in. Okay, so this is the standard brush, all right? It's just called F-Text Draw, so you're just drawing. So I was watching Craft Reaper's tutorial actually. I've watched many of his tutorials and that's where I started with painting. I'll link his tutorial below. And he gives out these 3 free brushes, right? You can give a donation for the brush or you can get it for free. Okay, so once you've downloaded the Blender file that he offers, we're going to go to File, Append, okay, and it's CR Basic Brush Pack. Select the brushes, select all of the brushes, so with Shift, right, and Append. Okay, and then you have a few more brushes. The one I like to use is the CR Strike brush because you see it kind of gives the same texture as if you're painting with a normal brush, like a paintbrush. Okay, anyway, so we have that base color, and now we're just going to go ahead and select some random other colors to create this look, right? Don't worry if it almost seems like exactly the same color, you just need to build on it. Okay, and later on we'll put in some lighting, etc. Make it a little bit brighter. There we go. Okay, you can see those brush strokes forming. For this to be rendered as a painting, you don't need to um, paint the back of the apples, but if you want to do like a 3D spin or sell them as an asset, then you would obviously have to paint the back of your apples. Okay, so I will keep painting. You can paint with me, and we can, in a moment, we can resume the tutorial. Okay, so I think we have the first apple kind of ready. Um, we'll tweak the colors a little bit later, maybe once we've added in the light and all those things. Okay, so let's move on to the stem. The first thing I want to do is go here, select this apple. You can see that the stem kind of goes in a different direction, right? So I want to select this edge loop, uh, this one as well, this one maybe, this. I don't think them to all be faces actually. So let's just select, go into wireframe mode, select all of these. There you go. And now we're going to rotate and move slightly. Just move down. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Good enough anyway. Okay, and now we're going to go to the stem and let's first fix this. Up, there we go. It's a bit better. And now let's select all of these faces. Okay, let's go to the shading. This one we left as very standard shading. So again, we're going to add a new image texture. Okay, image texture. We're going to plug it into the base color. See that it's turned black. Oh, we're not going to open anything. We're going to make a new one called stem. Okay, the others I'll call stem 2 and stem 3. But this is our first apple, so stem. Okay, good. after that, let's go to our UV editing first. Okay, so UV editing, same as usual. Smart UV project. We want the island margin to be 0.1. Okay, so here we have the entire stem all unwrapped, and we're going to go to our shading, not our shading, our texture paint. And now we can paint onto the stem. There we go. Okay. All right. Again, I think we're painting on the opposite side. So layout, tab, mesh, and normals. Recalculate outside. Also, there was something weird here with the stem. I think we're missing one more. There we go. Okay, UV editing again. Smart UV project. Yes, assign. And texture paint. There we go. Now it should work fine. Okay, this one I don't think we need to do too much. Let's just go back into camera mode. And we're going to select a brown color. Let's just select it over here and then we can kind of lighten it up a little bit. Okay, make this a little bit smaller. Paint that on. Here what I would do is probably just, paint over this like that so that it's kind of textured. Okay, we don't want that. These I think are the strange left out pieces. So let's select this color and make them that color. I think these are also part of it. Yeah, okay. Just kind of blend them in here. Okay. Blend them in, blend them in, blend them in. Okay, there we go. What else do we have here? On the edge of this, which is this one here, I think, we have, it's kind of darker and then there's like a little, okay, so let's select this color again. I think this one. Okay, let's just paint onto the edges. Last thing we've just got to add on the top here is a little bit of like a whitish color. Make it very small. Let's go back into camera view. See where that, okay, it's just here. Just on the edge. There we go. Needs to be a little bit bigger, something like that, I think. And there we go. That's our first apple pretty much finished. Okay, so with the background as well, you can just paint it if you want. And each of the apples you can paint as well. Okay, so I'm going to come back when all 3 of the apples are painted. Yeah, so let me just show you how to do a new apple. So we'll go back to layout, select this apple over here. Okay, And we're going to add a new color, new one, and we're going to call this material Apple 2. Okay, Apple 2. And we're going to assign. Okay, then again, UV editing, unwrap, smart UV project. Okay, let's go to our shading. Right, our Apple 2, we have to add a new texture. All right, image texture, connect it to the base node, call it Apple 2. Okay, and after that, we are going to go to our texture paint. It should be on Apple 2 over here. Okay, probably have to flip normals again. Right, mesh, normals, flip, or recalculate outside. Let's do that one rather. Normals, recalculate outside, back to texture paint. There we go. You can start painting the next apple. Okay, so I'll come back when these three are painted. Okay, so I finished the painting. I also painted the background by putting in a plane. It's just a normal plane, well, cube. It was a plane, I turned it into a cube. And I just painted onto the background to give it that depth, right? Even though there's not really a lot of depth, as you can see. Okay, so now that we have that, we need lighting, because if we go to render view, it's extremely dark, right? So I've just kind of selected, let's say, the middle of the apples. I think that will work. It looks like though that the light source is coming somewhere from here, like on this side. But let's just play around. Okay, so I'm going to add in an empty plane axis. All right. The reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to add anything to this painting or this model, 3D model, but I do want the tri-lighting to point at something. So it's going to point at this empty, okay, which is the middle of the picture. Then we're going to add the light, the 3-point lights. They're definitely need to, so a little bit more power, right? So the most powerful one, I guess, will be the front. So let's just put in 100 watts. I actually want to take the empty and we're just going to rotate it. Okay, so 1000 watts. I don't like where the light source is coming from. It's coming from the back. But that's okay. We can just change this one and put it over here. And this, I think, is going to be the strongest light now. So put on 100. Yeah, that's all right. Let's make it 500 watts. Now we're talking. Maybe we can lower just a little bit, 400. Slightly more, 300. Yeah, there we go. Okay, then we do need this backlight as well. Although this one, I think is just going to be around 50. Yeah, I think that's fine. And the last light needs to be in front of this cube because otherwise it's not going to work. Maybe at the top. There we go. Okay. I kind of like this, but I'm going to lower this to 50 as well. That's better. Okay. The only thing that's, yeah, well, I think that's okay. You can play around with the lights as much as you want. Okay, and that's about it. The only thing I do suggest that you do is when you're in texture paint, Okay, so this, for example, is what I painted on here, right? We're going to go Image, Save, and we can save it in the Apple. You can make a new folder, for example, and we can add in textures, right? This way, when you close your Blender file, or if it crashes, or whatever the case happens to be, you can save it. Right, so this one is not going to be Apple reference, this is cloth. There we go. Okay, then we're going to open up Apple 2. Well, let's go. So we did cloth, Apple Apple red. This is our first apple. Again, image, save, save as image. So just save all your images before you do the final render. Okay, I will do another video on the basics of setting up your camera, especially if you want to make things on TikTok. And um, that's about it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this part of the tutorial. It's the final part. And have fun painting. See you in the next one.